Hello, everyone. This is Scott Harrison and Leslie Harold Dillen, and we're coming to you live from Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Right.
Again, my name is Scott Harrison, and I am the artistic director and founder of Ironweed Productions, a theater company that's based in Santa Fe, and we've been here in Santa Fe since 2004. And I just want to welcome you all to our first segment of Talking Theater Live, conversations with Santa Fe theater artists. I see some people joining in. Oh, hey, Lisa. Lisa Pelletier just joined, my lovely wife. So I'm thrilled and delighted to have as my first guest Santa Fe writer, actor, director, and producer Leslie Harold Dillen. I just want to welcome you, and I also want to thank you for agreeing to take this first leap with our new adventure, because this is our first segment.
Yep.
But I'm thrilled to have you, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
It's great to be here. Thanks for asking me.
So, just a brief introduction for those of you who aren't familiar with this. See, we got some people joining in. I'll try to kind of check in, say hello to folks as they come in live. Talking Theater Live, this is the first in a series of 15 to 20 minute conversations between me and Santa Fe theater writers, actors, directors, producers, designers, dramaturges, stage managers, sharing stories about their experience in the theater and about the paths that have taken them to creating theater in Santa Fe. So we're here with Leslie, and what I try to do, and what I'm going to try to do with each segment, is to do it in a place that has some sort of special significance for the person being interviewed. So Leslie, if you could just start us off and just kind of tell us where we are and what this place means
in a kind of existential way.
Where
are we? Yes, we are on the Portal. It has other furniture, and we are actually in front of this painting that my husband painted when he moved in with me in 1976 in San Francisco, and it was a Taos. When he lived in Taos with his first wife, but that's a whole other story. We won't spend time on that. Okie doke. So this is a place I love to sit outside and think, and I write in my journal out here, and I've even brought my laptop out here. Okay. So it's a place of gathering for me. To get brave, to face the new day, as well as to engage the imagination. You can't see it, but there are like these trees all around, and it's quite an extraordinary little garden.
It's beautiful.
So, yeah,
this is such a beautiful setting. It's so peaceful.
It is.
So I'm thrilled to be doing our first one here in a very just peaceful place.
Yes.
And in front of the painting from Fred. That's really special.
Right.
So we've got some more people. Oh, hey, Karina just joined in. Hey, Leslie, a friend of mine from high school just joined in.
Oh, cool.
This is also the fun part of doing this, is just seeing people that joined on. And anyway, really appreciate everyone that's signing on live. Just a quick thing, I'll say this again, but we will post this on our Ironweed Productions Facebook page. So if you don't see this one or any others live, you can always check in there afterward, and we'll post them all on our page. Hey, Leslie.
Hey, Scott.
Another Leslie.
Oh, hey,
on the
Leslie.
Screen.
There,
Sorry,
yeah.
but hey, Leslie.
Oh, wait, yeah.
Okay. So this, again, we're just going to talk a little bit about theater, about our paths that have taken us to where we are. Just a tiny bit of history. I guess you and I have known each other, I was thinking, about 8 years. You all moved here about
10 years, almost 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you all moved here in 2008?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, so almost 10 years.
Right.
And I think, I was trying to remember, I think the first time that I met you was in one of Wendy Chapin's acting
That's
classes.
right. Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, Wendy Chapin is a wonderful acting teacher here in town, director, stage manager, and we were in her class.
Right.
And so at that time, you all had moved back to Santa Fe, correct?
That's right.
And because it never fails to yield a good story as to what draws people to New Mexico or to Santa Fe in particular, I just wondered if you could tell us a little bit about what initially drew you here and then what brought you back.
Yes, I can. We were here in the 90s. We had been in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and my mom had a stroke in Oklahoma City, and it became apparent after she was kicked out of the nursing home near us in Gloucester that she had to go return to Oklahoma City and be looked after there. So we decided to move to Oklahoma City and stay there for a year and a half, and then it became apparent that she could no longer stay in her home, so she had to go into a nursing home, and Fred and I had by that time said, oops, we have had enough of Oklahoma City. We will bring her to Santa Fe because Mother honeymooned here. For all I know, I was conceived here.
Oh, wow.
Santa Fe and New Mexico played a huge part of my growing up. We would come here on vacations to Bishop's Lodge, that sort of thing. So, and it was a place that after Dad died, Mom tried to come here, but it was just too hard for her to be by herself here. She didn't know enough people and whatever. So we brought her here at the last to think, oh, she can see the beautiful place that she honeymooned in and it will bring good memories. And unfortunately, she died 6 months later.
Yeah.
So we stayed on because we had always loved Santa Fe. We had come here to vacation to see people over the years when we lived back east. And so we said, we're going to stay. And so that was when we were here in the 90s.
Yeah.
And it was a great time, working with this new playwrights group with Bronwyn, Denton Davis, and Robert Knott, and other folks whose names I've just gone. But anyway, it was great. And that was the time that the first Mabel Dodge play, when I worked with Ed Hastings, who had been a mentor of mine at the American Conservatory Theater. So that was a real important time. And then we left because it's like people get this 5-year thing. Oh, you've been in Santa Fe 5 years. Oops, time to move on. And I still was like, going after that, whatever ring. The gold ring, the brass ring, something. And so I had a connection in L.A. Who wrote for us a sitcom, and she said, well, you should try writing sitcoms, because I had begun to write then,
Yeah.
So we moved out to L.A., and Fred had never lived there. I had lived there once. In my younger years. And so anyway, we moved out there, and then as it turned out, I go to the special agent, and he reads my thing. He says, well, this is very good, except, you're too old to be in the business. You could be someone's mother in the room. So, you can't write for us. But, do you have a daughter? Because does she look like you? I go, yeah. Is she married? Yeah. Oh, too bad, because I'd really like to date her.
Oh, nice.
So that was,
that's great.
that kind of was the LA experience.
Right.
So, but never being one not to use material, it became actually a little kernel for a whole play that I wrote and did part of here.
Did you do that at the Women's Voices?
Yes,
right.
Right.
I love
And then
that.
Peter Chapman was in it. And he was the agent.
I love
and,
that.
Yeah. I know. I
Very
love that
cool.
stuff. So, anyway, that's the first Santa Fe. Then we had moved. Then after LA, we moved back east to be with friends and stuff, and we just felt it. And I had done well in Boston again in the earlier times. I've moved everywhere twice. It's like, well, I didn't quite finish up there, so I'll go back again. Yeah. So we moved back, and then, almost 10 years ago, my stepdaughter went to the engagement party in India. Which is where I wrote the autobiographical Two Wives in India.
Right.
And so we returned from India. We were living in Cambridge, and we suddenly went, wow, life is really short. We know we want to end up in Santa Fe. Nothing was happening much for me in Boston. It was just hard, and the prices were going up with rent. And, so we said, let's just go to Santa Fe.
Wow.
So that was why we came.
Wow, that's fascinating. See, that's it. Yeah, I never knew a lot of that. So I mean, a lot of the details about, yeah, what initially brought you out here, and with your mom, and
Right.
yeah, it's just it's always fascinating, just the different journeys that bring people here, and just people, just just a very diverse, diverse stories.
And I think this is it. I mean, because we've moved from several houses, 3 houses in the last 10 years, but I feel like no matter what, this is it, because we love being here. It's just one of those things. You reach a point, it's like it speaks to my spirit in all ways, creative and emotional.
I agree. I know exactly what you mean. Well, thanks, Leslie.
Sure.
Yeah, that's I just talking about kind of roots and beginnings and things like that. I've been thinking a lot recently about how when I get involved often in a play, whether it's as an actor or director or producer, I can sometimes get consumed with what I'm not doing, or what I'm not doing right, or I'm not getting this. If I'm an actor, I'm not getting this. I just need to work on this. This is terrible. I did this terribly. Or directing, I need to make sure I didn't quite give this direction right, or am I leading everyone in the right direction? What are or a producer, like, what do all I have to do? I get consumed with all these, like, what I'm not doing and what I have to do, and I forget that that ultimately, at its core, theater is make believe. And it's just playing, and it's make believe. And so I just think recently I've been just looking back on my own childhood, and just kind of trying to connect to those times when I was little, when I discovered the magic of make believe and my imagination, and becoming someone else, or just when it was, and what that felt like, like I would just be thrilled to, it doesn't matter if I don't have anything, or if I stick, or it doesn't matter who I'm with, like I can just create this whole world of make-believe.
Right.
And I wondered if you, and for me, it was like my Batman cape, like that was my initial foray into being someone else.
Right.
Like I wore this cape, and everyone knew that I wore it around the neighborhood. And I was pretending like I was, I have dialogues running in my head about saving the neighbors, and girls I had a crush on. And are there things in your childhood that you recall, like when you first were just opened up to the magic of make believe?
Because I was an only child, that was my salvation. And I had severe asthma, and those moments you don't know as a child, like you're close to death, except that everybody looks panicky, and you can't breathe. But it was that I would always make up stories, and in particular is that I had an imaginary husband named George. Did I use this later in life? Yes. But it's true. And George, there was a mimosa tree outside my window, and the way I could calm myself when I was sick is I would sit in my rocker and rock, and I would make up stories. And so I got sort of frustrated about, I tried Peter Pan, but he was like so flighty, and I was like, oh, you're just not reliable, you're such a boy. And so then George appeared to me, and he was in a tuxedo, and he was really cool, and he would say, let's go on sword fights, and we would do things, and it was very romantic. And even though I was quite young, it all kind of worked out. I would imagine myself perhaps being older. I always wanted to be older. And so, he taught me to smoke a pencil, and I, would dress up in mother's cocktail clothes. And so George was a very important part of my imaginary. And I played with the dolls and made up stuff. And then I would entertain my parents as there was some darkness in the house, and my job was the entertainer. So I would come and do things, and one of them was Ema Sumac. I don't know if you know, or if anyone out there may not know, but she was, it was at a time in the 50s when they would have these like strange voice, people would be doing strange things with their voices and singing, and Ema Sumac would go and do things, and it was all very as though she had come from the Aztecs. I think actually it was someone from the Bronx who had, reversed her name. I don't know. But she would, and so I pretended I was Ima Sumac, and I would do these things in the living room. And so I felt, for me, I knew it was literally like your imagination can save your life.
Gosh, yeah.
So, and that's what I did.
Wow, and because I mean, one of the things I love about your work as an actor is just that you find very human humor in everything that you do. I mean, it's very rooted in what's happening. It's very believable, but it's just very specific. Do you feel like your experience kind of it sounds like having to find humor in very difficult circumstances was something that you grew up with?
Yes, and I don't know where that comes from. I mean, like, I'm terrible at telling a joke. And like one time when I was living in New York, a friend of mine was a stand-up comedian. She said, "Oh, you got to come down, and do stand-up." It was like horrible. I have, because I bring humor or have a sense of humor in a weird way. It was just, it's different. I don't know quite why, but I suppose you're right. Is that part of my entertainment was to make. I found out, if you make kind of funny, weird observations, my parents laugh, and they weren't real laughers. So to get them to laugh, and I must have found something rhythmically or in my observation, and you're such a strange little girl. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and you got reinforced. I mean, you got acknowledged for that. That's
exactly
right.
Right.
That's interesting.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting thinking about that kind of initial seed of kind of being drawn to acting. I mean, I know for me, it's funny because when I think I first got drawn to theater in college. I had a teacher, Alan Lindrup, who taught introduction to theater. I just was taking it on a whim, and I was just completely drawn in. And one of my first acting teachers, Tom Arthur, who's great friends with a director here in town, Robert Benedetti, I found that the thing that drew me to acting when I started was I was painfully introverted, which I still am. And for me, and I would feel such frustration in situations around people because I knew that there was more inside that felt like there was this wall and it could never get out because I was afraid, or I was, all those types of things. And with acting, it was just this, for me, it was just this exhilarating, like, release feeling. Like, I always felt like I was more fully who I was on stage than anyone ever saw. That was, for me, that was like the initial
I totally
draw.
agree. It's like king sex. Up here, on the stage, you are free. And that's what I felt as well.
Yeah.
Because of the illness, whatever, that my parents were, my father was a doctor, very controlling, and I mean, because they were protecting me. But on stage, I was like, I could do anything.
Yeah.
I could be anybody, and I didn't have someone saying, "No, you can't be that. You can't do that."
That's
It was so. I mean, I can remember like 5th grade or something. It was like a little school play where I was, played in the, Jack Dashaway. What is that? Don't pay the rent. I can't pay the rent. Whatever. And I was the little, and I was like, this is so fun,
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. I totally know what you mean, and it's there's just that feeling of like you say, of freedom, and it's interesting because I feel like sometimes there's this sense that people think, oh, you like to act, you're an actor, so you're at a party or what, oh, you must just like to just do. Talk about yourself, or do this, monologue, or tell this story, or just do. And for me, I mean, it's if I've got a script and that's one thing, but I mean, a lot of actors, I'm just surprised, are very, introverted people, and they're
Right.
not people that like to be the life of the party or anything
Right.
like that. It comes from a place of being,
Right.
introverted, and really, like you said, just when you're on the stage, it's just this kind of freeing feeling. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. One of the, many of you may. Oh, hi, Laura. Laura's a good friend of ours from way back when I was 12 years old.
Oh.
Lives out in Atlanta. Laura,
Oh,
great to
good.
see you. Oh, and hi, Ann. Ann Roylance joined in.
Okay. Hi.
Most people know out there that last week Sam Shepard, a Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright, a wonderful writer, actor, passed away, which was a huge loss for the theater community. And I know with Ironweed, I mean, we've been fortunate to produce 3 of his plays, which have just been incredibly exhilarating rides with his material. And Leslie, you worked at the Magic Theater when Sam Shepard was there and writing his, True West and, a lot of his new great plays. I just wonder if you could just tell us a little about what that was like.
Well, it was really an extraordinary time in the 70s in San Francisco, and particularly the Magic Theater, the Eureka Theater, where Oscar Eustis worked as well, who runs the Pap Theater. And I had been at the American Conservatory Theater for 2 years, and then I went to LA but came back. And one of the things at the Magic Theater, it's where all the cool people were, and they didn't want anything to do with those traditional actors at the American Conservatory Theater,
Yeah.
And in fact, the artistic director John Lyon, when I went in to audition, he says, "Oh, I don't think so. I don't think you have what we want." And I was like, yes, I do. I was determined, to get out of the box. And that's what, the Magic Theater was so extraordinary in terms of bringing people like Murray Mednick and, they talk in Sam Shepard when he was in New York, Cook, what's his name? Cook. Who ran Genesis Theater, Ralph Cook, and he came to the Magic to direct, and they're just wonderful people there. So I finally did get in to be in one of the crazy plays, and that's what they were, and what I consider one of my best roles was in this really crazy sci-fi kind of avant-garde play by a wonderful writer named John O'Keefe, who's still out there and doing really interesting work, and so like the daughter comes out of the wall, and my family, I lie on the table, and my family eats off of me for dinner. Kind of, it's a family play.
It's dysfunctional. That old chestnut.
Right. It was so great to go outside the boundaries. Anyway, opening night, it's a big deal, and Sam Shepard is there, and of course I've seen his work and just huge fan. So he's at the bar, and I go up and I get my courage and say, "Sam, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Leslie, and I really like your work." And turns to me and he goes, "Well, I really like yours." And it was like, I have arrived. I'm there. My life is complete now. And he had on these cowboy boots, and it was like, oh my God, I'm embracing my cowboy boot again. And I called them my Sam Shepard boots from then on.
That is
for the
really
next
cool.
years. So, it was. It's a little. It's those little moments like that that can suddenly, they just turn. They mean so much. I mean.
Yeah.
He wouldn't remember, years later when he was here, and I go up and say, "Hi, I'm sure you don't remember me, but Magic Theater, oh, that was a long time ago," and chat, and he had his book. But the thing is, as I look back, because I've been, this year is my celebration, 50 years as a professional actress. I've been in the business.
That's great.
It's a great thing.
Yeah, it is.
And I look back, and all those moments, little moments like that can make such a difference. It's like you want to be able to say to other people, you never know what sort of thing. If you speak to somebody, you give them a compliment, you don't know how that's going to affect them. So it's such a nice thing when that sort of generosity. It was a moment, but it made me feel like I had crossed a door, a threshold, and that I could do and be brave and take risks that I hadn't been able to so much in traditional theater. And so later, certainly that affected my writing a huge amount.
Just in terms of being bold and just
and not being afraid. I mean, I could never write like Sam Shepard. I'm not Sam Shepard, but inside, to be a 6'2" cowboy when I sat down at the page, it made a difference to me.
That's great.
So I was grateful for that time.
Yeah, those little nuggets and treasures are just, you're right. Those are the things that you really can, sustain you and also just keep inspired. Just open up other doors.
That's
things
right.
that you hadn't thought about, or you didn't have the confidence or what to try. Right. That's such a great story. Well, listen, I want to just ask you one more question here. Apollo Garcia joined. Apollo, great. Wow, from I think you're in the wilds of Europe somewhere, so that's exciting. This has been fun too, just to see who joins on. Really appreciate everyone joining on and saying hello. I just had one last question. It kind of goes back a little bit to the discussion about Sam Shepard. Like I'm not a writer, but I notice as a producer, I find that I'm drawn. A lot of times, this question keeps kind of surfacing and guiding me towards the plays that I choose, which for me is what is home. For me, that's always just this big and. I think a lot of it has to do with I grew up. My father was in the military, and so our physical home shifted very frequently, and so always that question of for me, like, what is home? Is it a physical place? Is it a location? Is it an internal place? And for me, I've found, and one of my favorite writers, Horton Foote, which really he explores that question, and what he kind of I think brings out, which really resonates with me, is that home is it's an internal place that you find your own sense of kind of connection and your own sense of meaning. That's kind of regardless of where you are. And anyway, that question for me is something I find as a producer just kind of always surfaces, and it's something I'm always intrigued by and grappling with, and kind of the material I find tends to kind of have that element in it. And I know Sam Shepard often returned to the relationship with his dad, and exploring that and grappling with that in his plays, which in working on his plays is just incredibly poignant to be kind of in the middle of that. And I just wondered, as for you, as a writer, or even as an actor, the stuff you're drawn to, is there like a question or an issue for you that you find that kind of surfaces, or something that you find in your writing? I'm continually trying to kind of work this through, or look at this from a different angle, or
well, that's such an interesting question, because I feel like it changes as you grow and do different things. I mean, as an actor, I used to always try to be someone else, to make those connections, to get the job, to they'll like me better if I'm this. I went to school with Diane Keaton, so that sort of marked me. I mean, it was like, if I can be Diane Keaton somehow, then I can make it. And so there was always this kind of search for who I needed to be in order to advance forward. And I have to say that it was an enormous relief, finally, at my second time in New York, when I went and took this writing class. And my agent said, "No, I'm sorry, you're over the hill. I can't help you." And, I was 35, Jesus. But, to find that writing, that the things that were inside of me could have a new place to express themselves. So that was a real joy to
Wow.
find I could participate in theater in a different way.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I didn't want to act, because
Right.
then it turned out that really my best writing and best performing has been as a solo performer, doing those autobiographical pieces that I did throughout my 50s. But yet I think that the question, in a weird way, is sort of like the actor's question, who should I be? And what's interesting that you asked that right now is that I have been looking at my work and going back and saying, where am I now as a writer? What am I interested in writing? Because time is somewhat of the essence here. And I found, writing this first novel, there I was returning to this stuff in Oklahoma. And I've moved, as I said, 18 times. I lived everywhere around the country twice, probably in search of some place. And I think that you're right to say that the place really is internal, but within that internal place, what I'm discovering is that there's all this material that I had put away because it's like, oh, you don't want to be from Oklahoma. Everybody just passes through Oklahoma. Well, I'm a 6th generation Oklahoma. That means that my people, Indian and white, were there before the run. So I'm now, my next and who knows, maybe last large project will probably, I call it the Oklahoma Project, will be about, a sort of, in the title, Haunted by Home. And I am haunted by it. And it's finally, I've journaled, I've prayed with it, but it is time. And it has to do with location, but that location has changed dramatically since I lived there. It's not that. It's the thing that's in your bones.
Right.
Do you know? That we often turn away from because either for whatever reasons we've been told, well, you want to ignore that, or oh, that's shameful, oh, this, and at some point you just go, what the hell?
Right.
Let's find out what is that in that place. So,
this is part of who I am.
This is who I am, and I feel so much more empowered and whole now than I did even 10 years ago about that. I mean, this is who I am. This is, and it's, I like it.
Right.
Everybody else may leave the room, but I okay.
That's right. But
so
this
what?
person, right.
But I'm my own best friend.
That's
now.
right. That's wonderful. Well, I love that title and the returning to your Oklahoma and haunted by home. That's just such a resonant phrase.
Right.
Well, Leslie, thank you so much for this time.
Thanks.
This
It
has
was
just
so
been
fun.
really just sharing your journey and just perspectives. And it's just been really, really rewarding. And I want to thank all of you out there for joining us.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you joining in and your comments along the way. This and future interviews and conversations will be posted on our Ironweed Productions Facebook page. So be sure to follow us and like us on Facebook. So if you don't catch you don't catch all of one live or any of one, you can always see it afterwards on our Ironweed Productions Facebook page. We're going to try to do these about once a week. They won't be at a particular set date and time. But we will announce the date and time. Will put a little teaser on my personal page to go check it out on our Ironweed Facebook page. So we will announce who will be interviewed and when in plenty of time before the next conversation. And I will say that we do have one lined up for next week. As far as who that is and when that will be, you have to keep tuning in to find out. But thank you all very much. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank
and I hope
you,
you all
Scott.
have a great evening.
Bye.
Good night.
Night.